Okay, so hello everyone. This is going to be a very short, like 15-minute recording, um, just on request of Ruth, who had asked that I should ask me a question about how to develop a communication strategy. So I'm just going to try to wrap this up in like 10 minutes. I'm going to put myself on the clock, 15 minutes max, and I hope this is useful for you. Anyways, so how do we develop an effective communication strategy? What I'm going to be talking about is basic stuff, nothing, sophisticated, but it's things that is important for us to know just so that we know how, these are principles that just sort of like set the scene on how to run an effective communication strategy. It applies whatever context you may find yourself, whether you're in the private sector, you're in public sector, you're in public service, organizations, NGOs, not-for-profit. These are principles of communication. They apply regardless of the context in which you find yourself. So let's see how we're going there. Okay, so 15 minutes how to develop an effective communication strategy. There we go. Okay, so now I move to my next slide. I'm hoping it moves. For some reason, it's not moving. Okay. Let me see what's going on here. Okay, there you go. Okay, so the first thing is you first have to start off with what is the statement of the problem? In other words, what are you trying to achieve? And this is very important because you could be working in a business sector or it could be a business or organizational context. The mistake that a lot of comms people make is that we think of the problem in terms of, actually, we don't even sometimes think of the problem. We're more thinking, we just rush into implementation and we're just thinking, oh, I'm going to run a campaign, I'm going to do this. But you need to, if you miss it at this point, you're going to miss it at the end of it all. I mean, trust me, you really have to first of all articulate the problem. Why am I being asked to resolve this issue? What's going on in the business and in the organization? Is it that we're having problems with sales? Are we having problems with marketing? Are we having issues with customers, with clients, with our stakeholder? Is our business not functioning properly? Are our employees well engaged? Is productivity an issue? Are we having problems with compliance, with safety? Are we having issues with our regulatory bodies? What's going on in the policy space? Whatever business issue. And for me, communications, you have to tie it to the business issue, to the bottom line. So whatever it is, that problem that the organization is trying to solve, don't think in terms of the campaign or what you are going to do. Think in terms of the problem, because if your communications does not address that fundamental problem, then it's ineffective, it's a failure, and it's not even going to be worth the money or the paper on which the strategy or the plan is written on. So if you want to be effective in communications, the starting point is articulate what the statement of the problem is, what's going on in the business or what's going on in the organization or in the environment or with your stakeholders that necessitated you coming onto this table and asking and trying to resolve this problem. The next thing is, when you have articulated your problem, you have a problem statement that is well articulated. The next thing, therefore, is to then look at what is my desired outcome. So what does success look like for us in this situation? What are the success criteria? And again, this is another point. Everything we have on this slide, if you don't remember anything that I'm going to say in the subsequent slides, I have about 5 slides. Please just remember this, because if you miss it at this point, you would really miss it like everywhere else. And what this shows, what you should tie your outcomes to is tangible things. So if it's compliance you're trying to address, then please let's mention compliance. Excuse me. And if it's productivity you want to address, then also mention productivity. If it's safety, if it's enrollment, if it's registration, if it's awareness, if it's behavioral change, in other words, you want people to start, doing something, acting in a certain way, maybe be more punctual at work, be more engaging, comply with a system or use a new management system. Be very specific about the behaviors you want to see that you're trying to address, because that is what will then determine how you will address your communication and the strategy that you will come up with. It may also help you find out whether communications is what you need, or more of engagement, or a mix of communications or engagement, or something completely different. It will also throw up any kind of operational issue that you need to bring up. So that this helps to just tie communications to your business context, to your organizational context. If it's a political context as well, it's also relevant. So then once you've gotten that all sorted out, you have your problem statement, you've also decided what your desired outcomes are, and you have your success criteria, you really write it down. Then we go to the audience. So in other words, who am I trying to reach? What are the demographics? Who is this person? Are they my employees? If it's my employees, don't just say employees. Is it field employees? Is it office-based one? Is it the people based in Lagos? Is it people based in head office? are they manager staff? Are they board members? What is the demographic? Because people are not, we're not uniform in our attitudes, in our behaviors, in our interests, and in our mindsets. And if you want to change how people feel, how they act, and what they know, then you need to understand a little bit about where they're coming from. What are the mindsets they have? What are the interests they have? What are their concerns? What are their beliefs and the value systems? Then you can develop a communication strategy that meets them where they are, and that you can sort of like communicate to them and convey the meaning in a way that makes sense to them. Does that sort of make sense to you? So you look at the who, you spend a lot of time on that who, and then what. So this is where you profile them. What are their interests, issues, and concerns in the context of that problem and that desired outcome. So if it is safety, what are their interests around safety? What are the belief systems that they have? What's their mindset? What's their attitude? What are their concerns? Why do we need this information? Because we need to understand who we're speaking to before we can reach them, before we can craft messages that speak to them in their language. Where are they located? Physically, location, is it online, is it media channels? Why this is important is because you meet people where they are. You meet people where they're most comfortable, where they will best receive a message from you. So all of this, you put it into the information around who you should be speaking to. And then you think about what you should be saying. I mean, this is really, really important. And a lot of us don't put a lot of thought into this. And this is why I always advocate for a strategic flow, a thinking, a principle-focused thought process in how we go about our communications. Because if you start from the end, I see a lot of people, they already decide you're going to do a campaign, and then they're scrambling for channel, they're thinking about the messaging comes last. I mean, how do you really do that? How do you speak to somebody you do not know? What language do you know that I speak? I mean, how do you know that you're going to reach me? Don't you want to know a little bit more about me before you get into a room with me and have the most important conversation of your life with me, if that is what it takes? If you want to come out of that meeting or that session with success, how do you set yourself up for success? Knowing, without knowing who I am and what's of interest to me, and the language that will resonate with me. So this is what the messaging piece does. You have to come up with a storyline based on what you found out in the first stage, which is in the first slide, which is statement of the problem and the desired outcomes, and the audience profile. You think about key messages that will resonate with each audience group based on the action and the outcomes that you want from each one. And then you develop content based on that, and you drill it down and make it very specific to the language and the tone. I am talking very fast, but these are very important steps that if you miss out on, will affect your ability to deliver an effective communication strategy. And please let me know in the comments if there's anything you want me to expatiate on. I'm just trying to make this short so that you don't spend too much time looking through this video. I may even be able to do this in 10 minutes or less. So then you move to the next thing, which is where you talk about the channels. So where am I going to meet these people? Is it a face-to-face that is required? Do I need to use our normal town halls? I'm a great believer in using the platforms that exist where people already are. I don't believe in trying to create a new platform and then telling people to come there. Communications is about meeting people where they are in terms of place, in terms of time, in terms of space, in terms of mindset, in terms of beliefs, in terms of culture. You meet them where they are. Then they can receive the message because you understand them already. You've tailored the message to receive them. And location is a very important part of that. So if you want to get a message out to people externally, and radio is their medium, this is their preferred medium of receiving and interacting with information. Why would you want to do social media for them? By all means, go to the radio. If you've also done your audience research and find out that these are people who tend to watch TV at a particular time and their habits are relatively consistent, then you know that you have a TV heavy strategy. Although I would really counsel against that these days, because you can't really guarantee the time when people will be listening, except you're going to have a recorded segment which you're going to play frequently, which is expensive. There are several other ways in which you can achieve the same purpose, but then it all depends on what your audience research brings for you. So don't go social media if your audience research shows that your audience is not on social media. And if, for instance, it's employee communications, look at how you can get how you can best reach these people. And like I said, don't have a one-size-fits-all approach for your employees, depending on the severity of the messaging. Think about if you need to engage senior leaders first, if you need to engage field staff, if something impacts field staff more than office-based staff, then please don't announce it in a general town hall. Go to the field and talk to the field staff. And it's your audience research and the outcome that you want that will make you nuance this strategy. Otherwise, you're just going to be doing stuff you have everything will be all over the place, and everybody will wonder at the end of the day, we did some comms, it just didn't work. So the next thing again is about your spokesperson. And by the way, like I said, this applies to any context you find yourself, even if it's a political setting or a public sector setting, and you have a public policy issue, a citizen engagement or advocacy issue, you can apply these channels as well. But it all starts with, what is the problem I'm trying to solve? What does success look like? Who should I be speaking to? What do I know about them? Where can I find them? What messages would resonate with them? How should I deliver those messages? And who is the most credible, influential person to pass this message across? And when I use that word influence, because these days, because of social media, everybody just thinks social media influencers. Social media influencers can only influence their target, their followers, let's put it that way. If your audience research shows that your followers do not follow these influencers, then by all means, please do not use influencers for what influencers should not be used for. So at the end of the day, the influencer may even be somebody within that group, within that audience group. It may be an employee, it may be somebody from that community, it may be somebody in your organization who has credibility with that audience because of the strength of relationships and the person's relationship focus over the years, and how the person has just sort of like built relationship capital and goodwill. You have to think very carefully about who is going to be the vehicle of your messaging, because that can actually kill your strategy. So you don't go social except your audience research demonstrates that it would serve your purposes to do so. And then, then you sequence your plan. So this is where you now put all of that together. And there's actually a way you can have a plan. There's a template I could have shown, but sorry, I didn't have enough time to create it, to put it on here. So I don't have that, but you can all put it in a table where you have like audience, messaging, segmentation, channels, spokesperson, messaging, and all of that. And then you sequence it. Sequencing is very important in communications, because sometimes if you have, for instance, an issue that you need to address, for instance, let's say you want to do downsizing like in your organization, it's important that you sequence the communication and you make sure that you do not allow the communications to run too far ahead of your action, or your action, even worse, to run ahead of your communication. In other words, before you've wet the ground and started letting people know that this is what you want to do, you have actually started sending out letters. That is horrible. You're very, like, if you're a big organization, likely to have a lot of problems, and you will get more than you bargained for. So these are things that can be managed. So sequence it. Think about who you should be engaging first. Think about how you should be engaging the person. Should it be a phone call? If it's something that involves that government or regulatory bodies should be concerned about, think about the people you need to pick up a phone call and speak to, and those that you need to pre-engage before public communications or wider communication is given. Put a timeline on it. Make sure you are watching over it to make sure that timeline is held. Build a schedule for the entire plan. Put in some metrics and measurements so that everyone will know, you will know how well you're doing. Like, we've talked about success criteria at the beginning. It's important that you still circle back to that to see whether you have actually delivered on what you want. It's this matrix that will make you know how well your communications has hit the bat going forward. And then, so I think this is where we get to the final point. Then finally, you develop and implement your plan. You put it all together, and then you allow for feedback and continuous improvement. Again, metrics, measurements is very important. If you have tied it to a business outcome at the beginning, a tangible one, not likes, not impressions, not that I did the campaign, tick the box campaign. Strategic communications is tied to tangible business deliverables. So in other words, safety improved, productivity improved, compliance improved, punctuality improved, performance improved, sales improved, marketing improved. If there is no impact in terms of attitude, outcomes, behaviors, bottom line, then sorry, your communications was a waste of time. So once you get that feedback through your metrics, you continue to improve and tweak the plan, and then you take it from there. So that's it. How to develop a communications plan in 15 minutes. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you, and speak soon. If you have any suggestions for another 15 minutes, how to intro, I'm very glad. Just drop it in the comments and let me know. Thank you.